Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
It's Mr. Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Could you imagine going to see Olympic events in Rivertucky? It is possible. Not probable, but possible. There's a $200 million proposal which would transform, the Riverside Golf Club. It's been abandoned since maybe 2009. They would transform the Riverside Golf Club in Riverside into an adventure center. They're talking about a 126-acre sports complex, and it would feature kayaking, surfing, climbing areas, and more. And we know that the Olympics are coming to LA in 2028, and Riverside, if they can get this project off the ground, and they're saying it would be privately funded, people would not have to pay out of their taxes. People would not be paying for it in the sense of public funds. If they could get it done by 2027, June 2027, that's the cutoff, then it would be eligible to host events in 2028. Here's some of the story.
5:30, I'm Cher Calvin.
And I'm Micah Ullman. If approved, the General Old Golf Course in Riverside will transform into the Riverside Adventure Center, featuring kayaking, surfing, climbing areas, zip lines, and more.
The complex would also have stores, restaurants, and apartments across the street. KTLA's Shelby Nelson joins us live in Riverside with more. Shelby?
Hey, Sharon, Micah. Yeah, it sounds really exciting, but keep in mind these are the really early stages of this proposed project. And if all goes to plan, the developer is hoping that this newly proposed location could host some of the competitions for the 2028 Olympics.
2 years, a little more than 2 years. There's time to do it. I don't know if it can be organized and created in that 2.5 years, but it's a very small window, but I actually would like to see that just for the city and area of Riverside, Inland Empire, because it needs it, and it would be a great draw for people to come out there, bring their families, have all sorts of fun. It would be a quasi amusement park, but I don't know if you've ever been kayaking. I have. It's great fun. I don't know how much of an audience there would be for it for the many months of the year, but it's something that I think there would be an audience for on some level. I mean, there are also plans for biking trails, picnic areas, new grocery store, and housing. It's something that could really revitalize the area more than anything. And I always kid about Riverside, calling it Rivertucky, and I say that very fondly because it's actually a very nice area, as well as San Bernardino in the Inland Empire. There's just not a lot to do out there. When I went out there, I was hanging out with friends at UC Riverside or Cal State San Bernardino, but there's not a lot as far as tourism goes. This would go a very long way to change that. And I'm just not one of those outdoorsy type people. I doubt Mark is. I know Tawala is not. I don't think Stefan is, but he's not here tonight. That doesn't appeal to me per se. But this is California. There's got to be, something like that would be appealing for most Californians.
Kayaking's a good workout, believe it or not.
When did you do that?
About a lifetime ago. But I mean, you don't think I got skin like this by being outside all the time, do you? Come on.
No, I've done some light kayaking with friends up in a place called Clear Lake in kind of central California. And I did some sculling and some rowing just for fun with friends at Georgetown, because Georgetown has a huge rowing team, one of the best in the country, or at least when I was there. So you had the chance to hang out with friends, and they were teaching me how to do it. I was very bad at it. Very, very bad at it. But I understand it's a great workout. I mean, you have a great appreciation for those types of water competitions and water sports, especially if you've never done it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not fun enough to continue doing it into your adult life.
Hell no. I don't even like sitting on a rowing machine now.
No.
Did you ever watch House of Cards?
Absolutely.
And how a principal portion of the show was built around Frank Underwood, and he would sit at his rowing machine and he'd work out his issues on the rowing machine.
It seems like every show that's set in D.C. shows some variation, some permutation of rowing, like Jack Ryan, all of it.
It's big as far as the culture in D.C. That's my point. That's exactly my point. There is a big rowing community in Washington, D.C. in the way that you think of L.A. and maybe the Venice basketball courts. Well, rowing is a thing that people just do in D.C. because you have the Potomac and you have the opportunity to actually go rowing.
Now, the hell with that. Just get on a stationary bike and watch a movie on your iPad like the rest of us.
Well, that's what I do, except the iPad part. I would never have an iPad in my hand. That's blasphemy. I don't do
Too complicated tech for you?
No, I just don't like Apple products. I'm on the Google.
You hate beautiful things?
I give Apple credit for the quality of the hardware, the build of their devices.
You prefer inferior products, is what you're saying.
No, I just like American products. I love America. And Apple builds most of their stuff in China.
Okay. Well, they put those nets up to stop people from killing themselves. I mean, that's due diligence. I don't have to feel guilty about Apple stuff, do I?
No. I'm just a Google guy. In other words, my phones have been Google, Android since the beginning. I have a Google Pixel 8. I'm probably going to upgrade to the Pixel 10. Everything I do on my computer is within the matrix of Google.
Yeah, you and Marcia, who I am right now christening the nice tech lady, the two of you have a weird Android cult thing going on. I've never understood that.
I'll explain it. It's very, very simple. Very simple. Android is for those who appreciate customization. We can make our phones and our email and that whole ecosystem specific to us. There are more customization options with Android phones as opposed to Apple, just from our home screen to the icons. It's a much more personalized experience.
It's like you're speaking Farsi to me, because when I have my iPhone in my hand, there's nothing I can think of that I would want to customize, because it does everything that all the stuff in a Star Trek episode would do combined.
It's not it's about the presentation. It's about how it looks.
Superficial, then. That's where you're focused.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe it could be the types of notification alerts, and you can customize it how your phone will buzz or beep for a certain text message. Or
I can do that. When you text me, I could program it to go, it's Mo.
You can. I'm saying... But there are more options when it comes to Android. You asked a serious question. I'm trying to give you a serious answer, and I'm trying to make it as simple as possible so you'll understand it.
That's a nice try, but I'm actually going to do that, and I'm going to insist you call Marcia the nice tech lady now.
She is the nice tech lady. But my point is, going back to the story, I've done some kayaking, I've done some rowing, but that was specific to Washington, D.C. And if you spend any time out there... rowing is a typical thing, and people would have rowing machines because you'd see people rowing on the Potomac. And it's a beautiful thing to do, and I missed the opportunity to do it. I would never do it now, but I'm saying when I was in my late teens and early 20s, the opportunity presented itself, so I got my ass out on the Potomac.
You do that too much, you get huge lats, and your jackets won't fit anymore.
Yeah, but that was 35 years ago. I think it's okay now.
You think?
Yeah, look, what I do is, as far as the physical activities, I'm doing my hop keto. I'll do 30 to 40 push-ups every morning before I get in the shower, do my stretches, but I'm not trying to build bulk. I'm trying to stay as lean as possible, or I should say less fat as possible, and, retain basic muscle mass. I'm not trying to lift weights like that.
Okay.
Those times are over.
Well, if you say so.
Oh, I'm sure.
I want you to be comfortable. I don't want you to injure yourself, or you don't have one of those medic alert things. So I don't want you to fall down and say I've fallen and I can't get up and have nobody respond.
Don't tell me I'm the only one who will go to sleep and wake up with a sprained ankle.
What?
That's never happened to you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, you're lying now.
You go to sleep and you wake up with a sprained ankle.
You've never got out of bed in the morning and all of a sudden you realize, like, wait a minute, I twisted my back or I sprained my ankle, and you have no idea why. And I don't sleepwalk, so we can remove that.
No, this is all new to me. I mean, of all the things that are going to happen while you're asleep, that's not a thing I would have guessed.
Robin, you're too young. You'll learn about this as you get older. Twala went somewhere, but I know it's happened to him.
Get him in here. We need
Twala, get your ass in here. I know that I'm not the only one that happens to. Where you go to sleep and you're like, wait a minute, how did I dislocate my elbow or something in the middle of the night doing nothing? I know I cannot be the only one that happens to. Twala, tell me I'm not lying.
What?
We need to get you the help you need and
what
fast.
Is happening? What?
You've never gone to sleep and like woken up with a sprained ankle or something. You have no idea how it happened.
Yes, of course that happens.
Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Are you two like Mr. Glass in the Shyamalan movies?
Oh, come on.
No, oh, look, seriously, Mark. Okay, I don't know what's going on in your genetic pool, but I have literally woken up and found my knee out of sorts, and I have no idea what happened. I woke up one morning, I got out of the bed, put my feet on the ground and stood up and damn near collapsed because I thought my ankle was sprained.
Take some supplements, for God's sakes.
He's playing. He had to have dealt with it.
Yes,
he's lying now. He doesn't want to admit his age. He doesn't want to let on that he's in the same age bracket as we are.
No, I am. I don't have any problem with that.
So he wants to claim like, oh my gosh, these things don't happen to me because I'm Mark Runner and I'm only 32.
So you haven't just stretched and almost literally put your entire back out.
No, take some vitamins.
See, he's lying now. He's lying.
You're a liar.
Pants are aflame.
Liar.
I'll stand up and show them to you.
No, because you don't wear pants in the studio. You already told us that.
Oh, that's right. Look at the time.
KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Your app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And Space Force is back in the news as Space Force is going to play, quote unquote, a central role in the Iron Dome U.S. Missile Defense Initiative. In fact, this integrated planning team, the IPT, will have wide-ranging expertise that will be critical in laying out the missile shield architecture to defend the U.S. homeland from missile threats. And that's according to the Space Force's Chief of Space Operations, General Chance Saltzman. Quote, we are leaning forward establishing this technical IPT to start thinking about it from an overarching perspective. The Iron Dome for America executive order was signed by President Donald Trump on January 27th, and it specifically directs Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth to submit a comprehensive plan detailing the architecture, requirements, and implementation strategy for a missile defense system. And the Missile Defense Agency, which oversees the nation's existing missile defense shield, has taken the lead in organizing meetings with the defense industry, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. And this seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, this seems to me the next logical evolution of what was the Star Wars Strategic Defense Initiative, whatever they called it, during the Reagan administration many decades ago.
Yes, but now we have an actual dedicated arm of our U.S. military dedicated to defending us, not just in the upper atmosphere, but in the upper atmosphere.
I saw this photo, which is floating around social media, of the X-37, the super secret drone craft, unmanned craft, which they use to do all our spy work out in outer space, and took a picture of Earth, and they released that to the press. And I'm quite sure now we have a fully fleshed out space presence, unmanned at least, including our satellites, which are doing all sorts of things up there. And this is the next logical progression. We have all these satellites. In other words, billions and billions of dollars worth of communication and military hardware, which can be vulnerable or can be weaponized in whatever degree. And it serves our interest that not only is protected, we also know what everyone else is doing. It's not just satellites up there, that's for sure.
Well, the notion of a military division protecting us, not just here in the land, the sea, and the air, but in space is important because we need to have, like you said, there are unmanned vehicles up there. We need some type of protection, some type of deterrent from enemy satellite spying down, from attacking our existing satellite network up there. We have to have some protections against that.
Trump's executive order says the U.S. needs a multi-layer defense against advanced missile threats, including ballistic, hypersonic, and cruise missiles. The administration argues that an advanced missile shield would deter adversaries like Russia and China. Well, I just thought we just were on the side of Russia as of yesterday. How can they be considered an adversary? But, the administration argues that an advanced missile shield would deter adversaries like Russia and China from leveraging their missile capabilities for coercion. I don't think President Trump needs to be coerced. He is fully on board with Russia.
Yeah.
Fully on board.
Maybe this is being built to help Russia. I don't know. Look, I just love the idea that Space Force is utilized more and more and more, that it is actually becoming something to our chagrin, because in the beginning we laughed mightily at Space Force, and then it turned into like, oh, wait a minute. Space Force is serious.
No, it is serious, and we need it. And Robin is way too young to remember this, but back in the 1980s, there was this huge debate about whether we should pursue militarization in space, whether we should have some sort of military presence, or what was thought to be like this Star Wars defense initiative where we would be able to shoot down other countries' missiles. Of course, we can do that now, but the conversation started in a public sense in the 1980s. And I know Mark remembers that debate.
Well, I'm not sure many people remember how widely mocked Reagan's Star Wars thing was. And about the best thing you could say about it is that it helped accelerate Russia spending itself into ruin, the former Soviet Union, rather.
Well, that is true, too. And yeah, that helped also bring down the Soviet Union. Absolutely.
But it wasn't because, we had a realistic shot at some futuristic space Star Wars thing actually happening. It was a spending race, and Russia, the Soviet Union, bankrupted itself. And
that was an adjunct, if you will, of the nuclear arms race at the time, where Russia had more missiles, nuclear ICBMs than we did. I think they still do.
Yeah, they still got plenty.
But, they couldn't even feed the people in, I would say, the early 90s.
There is still a shocking percentage of the Russian population that doesn't have indoor plumbing and toilets and stuff.
But they got missiles, though. They got missiles.
I mean, you may see footage of Tucker losing his mind at a grocery store there, but bear in mind that that's not representative of the entirety of the country.
But we're now old enough to see the growth and evolution of the vision of the late Ronald Reagan. It's now here.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm positive. It's real. The whole strategic defense initiative has been realized thanks to our president, Donald Trump.
I just hope they have cool outfits.
We talked about that, and we saw the uniforms. They're not quite cool yet.
I mean, I want a cool jacket if they're going to go through with this thing.
Oh, you weren't here when we brought Space Force on the show.
Yeah.
We did a whole hour with them.
Did they bring hats?
No,
I'd like a hat.
No, it was a very, very serious conversation. It was about their expansion and infrastructure, what they're building here in Southern California. It was very, very impressive.
It's like 3 miles from where I live on Crenshaw.
And yet no hats. This is very disappointing.
We'll have them back on the show, and we'll get hats just for you, Mark.
Hats, tattoos. I want the whole 9 yards.
It's Later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640 live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. From Star Wars Defense Initiative to Star Wars, we'll give you the latest about where that whole intellectual property is going now that Kathleen Kennedy is expected to retire by the end of the year.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And I love Star Wars through and through. Love it through and through. It takes me back to 1977 when my father took me and my grandfather, my mother's father, to see Star Wars. I think it was maybe the second week it was out. He was in Century City. We had to wait in line. It was packed out theater. And I'll never forget the experience. I absolutely loved it. Fell in love with Star Wars right then. And this was at a time there weren't a lot of sequels. You had maybe The Godfather, and I can't think of anything else which had a sequel in the 1970s. That was not expected. That was not normal at all. And then as Star Wars progressed, you had The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, Return of the Jedi in 1983, and then the rest, they say, is history. But much later on in that history, George Lucas sold his Star Wars world, universe of intellectual property and rights to Disney. And there was a question, there was a concern, there was a worry whether selling Star Wars would change it into something else, change it into something which was much more Disney-fied and less Star Wars. Star Wars, for all the jokes that people would make about it, was still a somewhat serious movie. You had one of the best villains of all time, Darth Vader, who choked people to death. He was a serious villain. If you know anything about the Star Wars storyline, it's basically based on the Nazis. You had the stormtroopers, and it was a Mark, how would you characterize it? I thought it was like a treatise on imperialism.
I just always thought of it as like the Cadillac treatment of all the old sci-fi movie serials that George Lucas grew up with, like Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers.
True, but there still wasn't a serious underpinning as far as what it was based on and the message he was trying to convey. There was a definite message in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. And I think it became more pronounced as the series went on. And then you realize that, like, you have moments where you realize, oh, are we the Empire?
Yes. Yes. And you think that you're on the side of right.
Yeah.
And maybe you're not. The more you investigate the origins of Star Wars and the real message, who is exactly the Empire and who is the resistance? I say all that to say, given all that subtext, when it was sold to Disney, there was concern about what it would become. And Kathleen Kennedy, who was the longtime president of Lucasfilm and one of the original people around George Lucas, did not share the same vision for Star Wars. And after it was sold, Kathleen Kennedy stayed on as president, and she's been much maligned and criticized as far as her vision, which seems to be more about Disney than the original feeling of Star Wars. And I think that's part of the reason why we got some mediocre Star Wars movies and some very mediocre TV series, with the exception of a few. It has now been reported that Kathleen Kennedy is going to retire at the end of this year. And it says to Star Wars fans like me and Twala, I don't know about Mark, but a different day is coming and maybe better movies are coming. Because I had sworn off Star Wars movies for good because of
You wouldn't just
9.
go see it no matter what, just because it's Star Wars and then hate watch it?
No, I did up until The Last Jedi. I was so done with Star Wars with The Last Jedi. I didn't even see The Rise of Skywalker in like the first 3 weeks it was in theaters. I had no desire to see it.
I'm not crazy about those. And I said for a long time that Star Wars really got along on nothing but goodwill after two good movies, Star Wars in 1977 and Empire in 1980. And there was nothing good for decades after that.
I disagree. For as bad as Jar Jar Binks was in The Phantom Menace, we still got Darth Maul. The only problem with Darth Maul is they killed him.
He was a cool character, and there were cool elements to some of those movies. I like the buddy cop Jedis.
That story with Jango Fett, that was a good story. It did pay off in the end, but that was still Lucas's involvement. He was still heavily involved, and he was still trying to flesh out a story that he began long, long ago. under the leadership of Kathleen Kennedy is when we saw it take a decided turn into the realm of Solo and the Rey-led prequels that were just...
Well, that goes back to the whole Disneyfication of it all. George Lucas was making stories for, I would say, more the nerd culture.
Mm-hmm.
And Kathleen Kennedy wanted to have teen girls and younger Disney fans of the Disney universe to buy into Star Wars. And I don't think it worked.
I think that Star Wars was always intended as much more of a vehicle for kids, and the marketing of all their toys bears that out. And it was always meant to be kind of juvenile fantasy and never serious hard sci-fi.
But maybe, okay, let's say that's true. But by the time it gets to Disney, it is what it is. And it had taken on a life and understanding of its own, which is different from the toys and the paraphernalia and all the marketing and merchandising that maybe we grew up on. But it was more about a level of seriousness of entertainment, not the silliness that it's become now.
Because the toys became collector's items for adults. The series and the franchise, it grew and maintained its relevance because of things like the graphic novels and comic books and video games, which are a lot darker, but the video games, which were very dark and told a much more serious and mature story because they had to appeal to young men. That's what kept the interest in Star Wars. And so when they said, hey, let's go at this again, you know, we got stories like Rogue One, which for me is one of my favorite stories because it told the story of the war, which is why I like Andor, because it tells the story of the war in Star Wars. But Kathleen Kennedy in her zeal and her quest to destroy the Skywalker legacy and turn it into some, you know, mass marketing machine. Look, I will give Kathleen Kennedy 2 props. I will give her 2 props and 2 props only. And that is the decision to put Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau in charge of future projects. Outside of that, ding dong, the witch is dead.
Yeah, yes and no, because she was the one who put Rian Johnson in charge and was going to give him his own trilogy.
Yeah, no. Now remember, she put Rian Johnson in charge prior. She gave him the trilogy prior to saying, Oh, they don't like this slow speed chase in outer space with Vice Admiral evening gown. They didn't like that. Oh no. Oh, Ryan, this may not be a thing for you. Hey, John. Who
was avowed not a Star Wars fan.
Yes, and can you get Dave over in animation? Can you get him to come over to live action? What? You've got a series for The Mandalorian? What? You've got an Ahsoka series? You're giving us the most badass Luke Skywalker in the history of the entire franchise? Thank you, gentlemen, for what you've done for us. You are my Obi-Wans.
Was Kathleen Kennedy also responsible for bringing J.J. Abrams on board? Because I think he did as much damage to Star Wars as he did to Star Trek.
Well, here's the problem. And before we go to break, we'll pick it up on the other side. Here's where Kathleen Kennedy, I think, made it worse than it was. J.J. Abrams had a trilogy in mind, but when you start changing directors, J.J. wanted to tell a story that began with The Force Awakens and was going to have a more fleshed out story in between, which we might have learned more about the Knights of Ren and what actually happened to Luke Skywalker. Rian Johnson comes in with The Last Jedi and said you have to kill the past and just disregarded everything which had happened in the previous movie. And then J.J. Abrams comes back for the third one and tries to tell a story which is completely incomplete, and it's completely disjointed and jumbled and nonsensical. And I blame Kathleen Kennedy for that. There was no way they could have finished that series.
Well, and J.J. Abrams was brought on board by Kathleen Kennedy, even in the earliest points of his career. Like she said, when I get on, I'm putting you on, because he was like a understudy when she was just a producer and stuff like that.
We'll have more in just a moment. It's later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. conditions apply.
Live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
Later with Mo Kelly on KFI AM 640.
Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. And we were talking about the impending retirement of Kathleen Kennedy. And this is important. You think, well, I'm not a Star Wars fan. Well, the Star Wars universe and the movies and the television shows on Disney Plus, we talk about the importance of Disney to movie theaters, to the overall entertainment landscape. I promise you, if Disney went away, the entertainment business as we know it would crater. The movie theaters that you know and love in your neighborhood would disappear and go out of business. Regardless of your personal politics, Disney is keeping thousands and thousands of people employed from a general labor force perspective. And it's also helping with our gross domestic product and our larger economy. So regardless of what you think about Disney, the success or failure of Disney has a direct impact on you. And I don't want people to lose sight of that. Sometimes we think, well, go woke, go broke. Well, you don't want Disney going broke. Not that they're going to, but you're actually rooting against yourself each time that you say that because you don't like the content that they may be putting out. And, sometimes there are consequences when you get what you ask for. That's not what you want. But anyhow, there are some things that Disney is doing well. There are some series that they've been producing on Disney Plus, which I think are fine in the sense of really quality additions to the Star Wars universe. One of them was Andor, and I had to slowly warm up to it. I thought it was a little slow in its first season, and then it picked up. If you don't know the story of Andor, it's basically telling the story, the inner workings of how the Death Star, the original Death Star, was built. And the second season trailer recently dropped.
We're in a war. You want to fight? Or you want to win? Last night I had a dream that the world had turned around. And all our hopes had come to be. The revolution starts now.
What a swell party this is.
More music than anything and montages of pictures. I wish it could had more dialogue in it, but you get to see how the Death Star was built from the inside out. And that's something, the story we never got to see. We just got to see a fully completed Death Star in episode 4. And we knew the story of the stealing of the plans. We saw how they were stolen in Rogue One, but now they're taking you just a step before that where, how the bureaucracy and the evolution of the empire led to the creation of this weapon of mass destruction.
That exactly hits it on the head. The bureaucracy, the politics, the political intrigue behind the scenes where you have different politicians currying favor with different factions, whether they be pro-empire or pro-underground rebellion, and how all of these inner workings is what shaped the galaxy. And it gives you another look at what you would consider the sides of right and wrong, when really this is almost Republicans and Democrats. This is very, very heavy in its political leanings, in who is who, and the story they're trying to tell about not necessarily one party, but party specific overreach and party overzealousness about controlling the narrative writ large. This is ultimately what happens.
And that's the funny thing, funny aha and funny ha-ha, where people complain, I don't want politics in my Disney content. If you know Star Wars, it's nothing but politics. Sorry to disabuse you of the notion that there are no politics in Star Wars. It was built on politics. And this is talking about, if you go back and watch The Phantom Menace, it is almost exactly what's happening right now in America.
And at the time, we all mocked the whole trade war thing and all the Galactic Congress stuff as a bunch of nonsense. We didn't like it. but it really applies now.
It actually does. And you have the invasion of Naboo. I'm getting ready to go deep. You have the invasion of Naboo, and then you have the trade viceroys who said, what do you mean? What invasion? What are you talking about? There was no invasion. We need to have an investigation into it. And how the bureaucracy, and if you're talking about Naboo is Ukraine at this point, and the Galactic Senate is basically Russia, and they want to deny the invasion of. There's so many historical parallels to this world right now. If you watch Star Wars, if you don't like to have politics and Star Wars mixed, you've never been paying attention at all. As a matter of fact, I think I got that clip around here somewhere real quick. I can play that. What is today? The 25th? Yeah, I think it was 24th or so. I'll have to come back and find it. Maybe I'll find it after the break. But definitely, Kathleen Kennedy retiring helps Star Wars, and it will help it moving forward. And Andor season 2 comes out in April, correct?
Yes, cannot wait. Love Andor.
KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
Stimulating talk for independent thought.
KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.